Around the year 1000, the Viking world stretched from Newfoundland to Constantinople. Norse kings ruled in Dublin, York, and Normandy. Their traders moved silver across half the known world. It was the peak of everything the longship had built. But something was shifting. In the fjords of Norway, in the halls of Danish kings, in the stone churches rising where wooden temples once stood, a new faith was taking hold. The gods of Asgard were losing ground to the god of Rome. The Viking Age had reached its summit, and from the summit there is only one direction left. Before we begin, this video uses artificial intelligence tools to visually reconstruct what these places and events may have looked like. AI allows us to step inside vanished worlds and witness moments no camera ever captured. Some visual details may contain inaccuracies, but every word of the script is human researched and fact-checked. Now, let us witness the twilight of the Vikings. The transformation began in Denmark. Around 965, King Harald, later known as Bluetooth, united the Danish tribes and declared himself a Christian. He raised a massive carved stone at Jelling to proclaim it. Denmark was now a Christian kingdom. This was not just about faith, it was about power. A Christian king gained recognition from Rome, alliances with the Franks and the English, and a legitimacy that pagan chieftains could never claim. Norway followed. In 995, Olaf Tryggvason returned from years of raiding in England, newly baptized, and seized the Norwegian throne. He converted his subjects by persuasion where possible and by force where necessary. He sent missionaries to Iceland, where the national parliament, the Althing, made a remarkable decision in the year 1000. The entire island would adopt Christianity as one to prevent civil war. Sweden came last. Its first Christian king, Olaf, took the throne around 995, but the old gods held on there longer than anywhere else. Norse paganism did not vanish overnight. It faded slowly, unevenly, resisting in the countryside long after the kings had kneeled before the cross. While Scandinavia converted, its warriors delivered one final blow to England. In 1013, the Danish king Sven Forkbeard invaded and conquered the entire English kingdom, forcing King Ethelred into exile. Sven died just 5 weeks later, but his son Cnut inherited his ambition. Over the next 2 decades, Cnut the Great built something no Viking had achieved before, a true empire. He was simultaneously king of England, Denmark, and Norway, ruler of a North Sea empire that stretched from the Arctic to the English Channel. Under Cnut, England was not occupied, it was governed. He respected Anglo-Saxon laws, patronized the church, and ruled as a Christian king, not a Norse warlord. For a brief moment, the Viking world and the Christian world were one and the same. But the empire was held together by one man's force of will. When Cnut died in 1035, it fell apart almost immediately. His sons fought over the pieces. Both were dead within 7 years. In 1042, Edward the Confessor, a Saxon, reclaimed the English throne. The greatest Viking empire in history had lasted less than 30 years. In Ireland, the reckoning came even sooner. By the early 11th century, Brian Boru had risen from a minor kingdom in Munster to become the first man who could truly call himself High King of all Ireland. But his rule was challenged by the Norse kingdom of Dublin, allied with the Irish kingdom of Leinster, and reinforced by Viking warriors from the Orkney Islands and the Isle of Man. On Good Friday, April 23rd, 1014, the two sides met at Clontarf, just north of Dublin. The battle lasted from dawn until sunset. It was a bloodbath. Brian's forces won, but at a devastating cost. Brian himself, now in his 70s, was killed in his tent after the fighting by a fleeing Viking warrior. His son and grandson both died on the field. Viking military power in Ireland was broken that day. Dublin survived as a Norse-Irish trading city, but it would never again be an independent Viking kingdom. The age of the longship in Ireland was over. If you're finding value in this journey, you can support this channel by joining as a member. It genuinely helps us keep bringing these lost worlds back to life. Half a century later, one man tried to turn back the clock. Harald Hardrada, King of Norway, former commander of the Varangian Guard in Constantinople, veteran of battles across the Mediterranean, believed the English throne was rightfully his. In September 1066, he sailed for England with a fleet of 300 ships and nearly 10,000 men. It was the largest Viking invasion force in a generation. At Fulford near York, Hardrada crushed the northern English earls. York surrendered. For a few brief days, it seemed like the Viking Age might not be over after all. But the English king, Harold Godwinson, marched his army north from London in just 4 days, one of the fastest forced marches in medieval history. On September 25th, he surprised the Vikings at Stamford Bridge. Hardrada had left his armour behind at the ships. It was a hot day. He fought without chainmail. In a battle fury the sagas called the Berserker Rage, until an arrow struck him in the throat. He fell, and with him fell the last serious Viking claim to a foreign crown. Of the 300 ships that had sailed from Norway, only 24 carried survivors home. 19 days later, another army landed on England's southern coast. Its commander was William, Duke of Normandy, the direct descendant of Rollo, the Viking chieftain who had been given Normandy in 911. At Hastings, William defeated and killed Harold Godwinson and took the English crown. The Vikings had lost England at Stamford Bridge, but it was other Vikings, transformed, baptized, speaking French, who won it at Hastings. The age was over. The bloodline was not. The Viking Age lasted roughly 270 years. In that time, Norsemen reshaped the map of Europe and beyond. The cities they founded, Dublin, York, Kiev, still stand. The trade routes they opened, from Scandinavia to Baghdad, from the Baltic to Constantinople, became the arteries of medieval commerce. Their political legacy endures in ways most people never notice. The Althing in Iceland, founded around 930, is one of the oldest parliamentary institutions in the world. The English word law itself comes from Old Norse. So do the words sky, window, egg, they, and hundreds more, traces of a language spoken by settlers who blended so thoroughly into English life that their words became indistinguishable from the native tongue. In Normandy, the descendants of Rollo built cathedrals and castles, and eventually conquered England, Sicily, and parts of the Middle East. In Russia, the Rus dynasty that descended from Scandinavian traders ruled for over 7 centuries. The Vikings did not disappear. They became the world around them. The longships rotted on the beaches. The sagas were written down in Icelandic monasteries. The last pagan temples became churches. But what the Vikings built, the cities, the routes, the laws, the words, the bloodlines, endured long after the age that created them had passed into memory.